Hello, America. Welcome to another edition of Tea Time. I am Daniel Rangel. I'll be your host tonight, and I'm here with Joe Connor and Michelle Tamalo, two business professionals, and we'll be covering Obamacare and the Imperial Presidency, Obama and his pen. Welcome.
Thank you.
How you doing?
Let's cover Obamacare first. If you pay attention to the current news cycles, you see that more people are turning on Obamacare day in and day out. What's your opinion on what's going on?
Well, I think American people are starting to realize that it wasn't all about this website. It was about the actual legislation, the Obamacare itself. And we've seen so many people lose their health care because of this law. We've seen people be rejected. We've seen people now understand that our president is changing a law, not by executive order, but just by a whim.
Happenstance.
28 times. And I think the American people are starting to get a little bit nervous that we have a president who, as I think all of us here predicted years ago, that he was not the kind of guy that we would normally have as a president. And he thinks he has a little bit more powers than is granted to him in the Constitution.
Okay, and you're in the finance business and you're in the HR department. How do both of you see how this affects the actual business and maybe even the employees?
Well, you know, Danny, this is becoming like an octopus. It has so many, arms out there and legs. It's just unbelievable. Obamacare is suppressing the job market. So small business owners, medium business owners are not adding new jobs because they don't want to go over the threshold of a head count that's going to put more burden upon them. These jobs are not in the market. People cannot find those jobs, especially college students who have paid so much money. They cannot find the jobs. And this has a domino effect. The company doesn't invest in the infrastructure. They have to pay more money for the health care. And as that rolls on, you have people not making a salary, they're not buying services, they're not going out to dinner, they're not being engaged in their community, they can't afford to spend the money, they're not getting in their car. Fuel is astronomical, really, as compared to 6 years ago. So, you have this effect. Now you pile on the fact that now the IRS wants those employers who don't hire people to actually say that the reason that they're not hiring, actually laying off, is because of some other reason and not Obamacare. Now, in my view, this is really propaganda, because if you're forcing people to say, or companies to say that they're not doing that, and the small business owners, they're filing as well, their taxes, and if you're forcing these individuals and corporations to say that, then the government's going to use that and say, oh, it wasn't Obamacare. So it's a catch-22. What are you doing? What is the propaganda? And it's becoming so burdensome.
One of the things about our country was the founders understood human nature. And they understood that people react a certain way, and if you make things cheaper for people, they'll buy more of it, and vice versa. And what this Obamacare is trying to do is trying to legislate out human nature. And by that I mean they are saying, like, they want more young people who are healthy to buy it. So they make it illegal if you don't. Okay? And as Michelle points out, they're going to businesses and saying, well, if you lay off people because you don't want to have to subscribe to Obamacare, we're going to make you swear under penalty of perjury that it's not because of Obamacare. So they're trying to legislate out the human nature, the natural reaction to save money as a business, because that's what you would do. If you're not going to reach a threshold, that's going to cost you more money than you're going to make. So they're trying to legislate out that human nature. Then the next thing, as I see it, is they're going to say, okay, well, now these companies who are now incurred all these expenses due to Obamacare are not going to be allowed to raise prices because of Obamacare. So, I mean, it's like when you have a mess and you're fixing these symptoms, and you think all along the way you're fixing these symptoms, but you're never going to fix it because the problem's at the top. And the problem is Obamacare. The problem is people thinking, and this has gone on through history forever, this is what's called tyranny, think that they can legislate out human nature, and that's exactly what's going on.
And see, one of the things is, because I have actually a business management degree, when you make it unstable for businesses in order to stay in business, they have less money, less capital to invest into new research, into new employees. Let's say in the next few years, how do you see small businesses in particular affected by this?
I think you're gonna definitely see a big hit. Yeah, why would someone want to go into business and take on all these burdens? They have so many regulations. There is so much to comply with that, someone's going to think, well, I'm not going to go into business, or even, I'm not going to go into business in New Jersey. Let me go to South Carolina. Let me go to another state that's more business friendly, because they can't get out from underneath the federal mandates. So what will they do? They'll go and get out from underneath the state mandates. And that's going to cause a problem. You're seeing the exodus now out of New Jersey, out of New York, who has a governor that said people aren't welcome if they have conservative values. You see this, and people are going to go where they're welcome. They're going to go where the opportunity.
And I work, as you said, in the financial services industry, and one of the things that we are way in compliance now with everything. Since Dodd-Frank, compliance is a huge issue. So now you have this Obamacare law that comes down the road. So now we have all our compliance people have to figure out how we're going to implement it and comply with it. Then you have the president saying, well, we don't have to do that now. We can push back the companies having to abide by Obamacare for another year. So if I'm a compliance person and we have thousands of them where I work, what do? Do you say I'm complying with the written law, or am I going to have to comply with a presidential fiat?
Right.
So it creates havoc in these companies. They don't know whether to comply or not. If they go along with what the president says, they're breaking the law. And if they go along with the law, then they are possibly going to be attacked by the president later for not doing what he wanted done.
So
it's a catch-22.
So let me ask you this: wouldn't it have been a better idea before the law was implemented, go with what Ted Cruz was saying, to delay it for a year just to get everything under wraps?
Well, I think the law never should have been implemented, and Cruz clearly was right in that pushing it in like they did was ridiculous, but the whole law was ridiculous, and everyone knew it. Who was a thinking person understood that you can't mandate people buy something that they may not want, and you can't force doctors to perform surgeries and medical people as a right to those people, because what's the doctor's right? The doctor becomes a slave to Obamacare, and that takes away his rights. So somewhere along the line, our rights are being compromised by Obamacare.
Now, Michelle, it's funny that you touched the issue of entrepreneurship. You, in your opinion, it would hurt entrepreneurship.
Correct.
We actually have a clip that we have Jay Carney saying that the implementation of Obamacare is a good venue for entrepreneurs to take their talent with their free time. You can cut to the clip. Well, welcome back from that clip. I hope you enjoyed it as well as I did. You saw Jay Carney making a twist on the 2 million people that are now not looking for work, according to the CBO. This is a major issue. Quite frankly, the way that they twist this is I don't understand how people don't realize what's actually going on. One of the things that he said was how you would be able to you'll be able to spend more time with your family with all the free time that you have, not having a job. How do you guys? I can't even respond to that.
You got to wonder: is he Jay Carney or Art Carney? Am I talking to Ed Norton right now? Because I mean, you feel like you're in a comedy show. Yeah. What he's not saying is this guy, someone can spend more time with their family, but at whose expense? The guy who's working. So yeah, you spend more time with your family, but someone else is paying for it. I think that's a beautiful thing, right? Maybe everyone should just stop working. We should all spend time with our family, and we'll all have a beautiful life, and who the hell's going to pay for it at the end of the day? Right. It's insane.
And it's not only Jay Carney saying this, it's also Nancy Pelosi and everyone else.
How can you possibly put a spin on losing a job? That's devastating to a family. I think that it's highly insensitive when they make those remarks and try to put, gold on a painted, car.
Lipstick on a pig.
It's just not possible that anyone is going to be happy about losing their job. Being in HR, I would never, in my wildest dreams, have thought that anyone would say, gee, thanks. I'm so glad I lost my job. I'll be able to spend more time with my family. It's preposterous. And it just, I don't understand how they think people will absorb this and gravitate towards it. It's terrible if someone loses their job.
I mean, I've been
plain
laid
and
off.
simple.
I've been laid off, and my, like so many other Americans, and it first of all, it's a blow to your esteem.
Big time.
As a man, you feel kind of weak. It really hurts, and it hurts your family, and it puts everyone in a terrible mental state. And that's something our government doesn't seem to understand, that all these regulations as they push down on us, how badly it hurts the person, whether it's the person who loses their job or whether it's the person who has to work to deal with regulation all the time. I do that at work now too. It is so frustrating. It's aggravating. All we're doing is not working to make money, and that's the fun part. It's working to fill out forms for the government or find another way to implement a tax or whatever crazy schemes that come up with that make no sense, distracts us from what we're supposed to be doing, which is adding value to our share owners. And that's a misery index that no one is even talking about. Just the misery that you have at work right now trying to deal with all the crap that they've put in our plate.
And see, that's the other key thing that Jake Carney said. Apparently, with all the free time that you'll be able to explore your entrepreneurial spirit. I'm in the middle class. I'm in the construction field. If I was to lose my job tomorrow, I wouldn't be exploring my entrepreneurial spirit. I would be looking for another job.
Right.
Now, I just.
Well, Danny, you're probably unusual in their minds because they think everyone should be. There should be a select few that get to work. My wife and I decided to have 2 kids. But I feel like I'm supporting 5 kids right now, and that's not what we wanted. I have to send my kids to college, but yet the taxes we pay, the stuff that the hand that we're dealt as people who actually contribute to society by working, we're being punished for it, and I feel like I'm raising other people's kids on some level.
And see, that's because I take more of the physiological approach to things. I see things how they're gonna play out in the future. What do you, in your guys' opinion, what are the effects that it has on the family, on the children, on just the future of people like myself in the middle class?
I think that when you look at people who are on the younger side, have just come out of college, who are in their 20s and their 30s, they're looking for the opportunities. And the opportunities are not going to be there. They're going to have limited career choices. They're going to be ushered into jobs that they don't want. What kind of future is that? These unintended consequences of Obamacare, the loss of the jobs, you have doctors who are opting out, you have doctors that are dropping out, who don't want to deal with the extensive paperwork and filings that Obamacare is going to demand from these doctors. You have to have 2 or 3 full-time people in your office just complying with the paperwork and the filing. They want to know if you got bit by a dog, what kind of dog it was. Was it a golden retriever? Was it a Pekingese? I mean, this is, it's insane what is actually behind all of this. We're going to migrate, in my opinion, at some point to a plan the way the UK has, and that is that you have the plan with the government, and then you also have a gap plan. And that is going to bridge whatever the government has and whatever you desire to have. And it's actually going to create 2 different classes of people, which we didn't have before. So it's not going to be a good thing for us overall.
So the people with the money will have the gap plan, and
That's right.
And the people without the money will be subjected to the horrors of the state plan. Yeah, I agree.
And then we'll have more of a divide between the classes,
More than ever
which is
before.
not what we ever wanted, which was not, most people don't want to see that divide. They just want to see opportunity for educated people, opportunity for people who are technical, want to use their hands, for who are in construction, who are in the service industry, opportunity for people to do the best they can and have a career.
And with Obamacare too, the doctors are being squeezed. And as Michelle said, people are coming out of school. Medical school takes years, costs a fortune, and their opportunities are going to be way diminished. In Obamacare, they didn't address tort reform or anything like that, so the lawsuits are still flying. So doctors are paying huge amounts of money for insurance for lawsuits. So who's going to want to become a doctor in the future? So instead of having the best and the brightest becoming doctors in this country, we're going to have the C students becoming doctors in this country. And is that what you want? I mean, honestly, you know, we are really, no pun intended, shooting ourselves in the foot with this stuff, because you're going to really create a system where the best and the brightest are clearly running away from that and eventually running away from this country.
Mm-hmm. And these are all the things that we actually pointed out before it got enacted. Yeah. I want to change lanes real quick because it kind of ties with Obamacare, because all this is all about control. Obama's Imperial Presidency. He's using executive order to make changes or delay Obamacare. It's not isolated just to Obamacare. We actually have a clip of Ted Cruz on Face the Nation talking about his tyranny.
Let me tell you something that deeply concerns me. It's the abuse of power from this administration. We've seen multiple filmmakers prosecuted, and the government's gone after them, whether it was the poor fellow that did the film that the president blamed Benghazi and the terrorist attack on. Turned out that wasn't the reason for the attack, but the administration went and put that poor fellow in jail on unrelated charges. Or just this week, it's been broken that Dinesh D'Souza, who did a very big movie criticizing the president, is now being prosecuted by this administration.
Senator.
Bob, can you imagine the reaction if the Bush administration had gone and prosecuted Michael Moore and Alec Baldwin and Sean Penn?
Senator.
It should trouble everyone that this administration uses government power, and the IRS in particular, to target their enemies. And you're talking in a few minutes to Chuck Schumer.
We're going to leave this
He's
for another
calling
day,
on the
Senator.
administration.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll talk to you again. We'll be back in a minute.
Thank you.
Welcome back. That is a startling clip from Ted Cruz about the abuse of power. What do you take away from that, Joe?
Well, as we know, I mean, Ted Cruz really hit the nail on the head in that clip. And I think we found out later that a lot of that clip had been edited by Bob Schaefer's group at Face the Nation. And it really shows what we're seeing more and more of now in this country, where the media is becoming wholly owned by the government. I don't know if you saw recently the story that the FCC, the Federal Communications Commission,
yes,
is planning on putting operatives in newspapers, TV, and radio stations to study how decisions are made on what content is being delivered over the air or in writing. So in other words, they're looking to censor and control.
I think they're calling them monitors.
They're calling them monitors. Very Orwellian term there. You know, this is a clear violation of our First Amendment rights. And even if you're on the left, you got to be very nervous about this kind of thing. This is an attack on our freedoms. A recent poll came out that I heard today, and it talked about that out of the 200 or so industrialized nations, we rank number 46 in
yes,
terms of freedom of the press and freedom of speech. And how that can be when the First Amendment of our Constitution guarantees those is beyond my belief. So we have a problem. We have a huge problem in this country that's just getting worse, and I hope people will start to realize that their very freedoms are being attacked, and overtly at this point.
Yeah, Joe is absolutely right. I mean, he touches on something extremely important about the suppression of free speech. When you take this and you also take the fact that the government is intruding on our personal lives more and more, the collection of data, and when you look at the fact that the ACLU has come out against the recent actions of the NSA to harbor more of the personal telephone calls and personal information, you have to ask yourself, if conservatives and the ACLU are on the same side, there has to be something wrong with that action.
Right.
You have two different groups with different views who have come to the exact same conclusion that this is an intrusion into our lives. So when you look at all these things that are happening, the assault on the free speech, the admonishment of people. You have to have politically correct speech. We can't even have an honest dialogue to rectify the issues because you have to watch every single word. I'm not talking about words that are offensive, that are highly insulting to people, but we can't even have an honest dialogue. And when you're going to have these monitors, as they call them, what are we going to do? I mean, we have to watch every word and everything that's said, done. Where's our freedom? Where's our liberty? So Joe is absolutely right on point when he mentions this, and he's got an absolute good view on it.
Yeah, and see, the thing is, this news came out today, and I was very taken back when I first heard it, because last time I checked, I didn't live in Venezuela under Hugo Chavez.
You should check again.
I think out of this, hopefully, more people will be waking up, because the fact that they have a monitor in the newsroom or in the media sources, that is a complete infringement on the First Amendment.
Well, you know, you wonder how this will play out, right? So if I'm running a news organization and they come knocking on my door and say they want to come in, what if I tell them no? You're not coming in. Then what? Am I going to be arrested? So now and I think that's the way to go, because now you're forcing a constitutional issue. You're making an issue of it. If these journalists, and I'm talking the left and the right. I mean, the left, if they're true journalists, it shouldn't matter what their political views are. They should want to be able to report accurately the way they want to report it at no one's discretion. So close the doors and tell them no, you can't come in, and then see what happens. Because the next thing is, what, do they force their way in? Do they get police to come? Do they get arrested? I mean, and in that way, it'll show exactly what we're dealing with. If it comes to that point that we have a government that's willing to knock people's doors down or send police to arrest those who defy that will, then it's very clear what we have in the White House and what we have in our administration. And I personally don't think that they want to show themselves that clearly. They do everything very stealthily. So I think if the news organizations fought back and said, no, you're not doing it, I think the government would back down. I don't think they'd go away. I don't think they'll ever go away. They're like, Neil Young said, rust never sleeps. They just keep going and decaying without going away, but they don't want to show themselves. So I think they would back off.
And see, that's the thing. I mean, it doesn't only have to pertain to this FCC thing that came out today. Just an infringement on rights. This is something that the left and the right, doesn't matter what party you're affiliated with, this is something that we should unite as Americans.
Yes.
Because an infringement on my right, if I'm a conservative, is an infringement on a liberal, quote-unquote liberal's right as well.
Yeah, it's across the board. We need to remember that, the media is supposed to be the watchdogs, and they are supposed to be balancing off on what the government is doing. Right. Their job is to, as Joe says, to report the facts, and people can make their own decisions. But when you don't have the facts anymore, like the clip where they cut what Ted Cruz said out of the edition on Sunday morning, when that happened, I mean, it's outrageous that they would cut out the comments because they were critical of the president. We need to have media who are truly journalists, because it's the only way every citizen can know the issues and make their own decisions. And I trust them to make the right decision, but they have to have all the facts.
Right.
Thomas Jefferson said he'd rather live in a country with no government than one without a media, or they didn't use the word media then, but a press. And what he meant by that was we needed a free press to keep everyone else in line. So, we have our founders, we have George Washington, and many of the founders didn't believe in political parties. So now we have a situation where we have political party people. If you adhere to this mandate that there's monitors in a news organization because you're a Democrat, then you're putting your political affiliation ahead of the Constitution and ahead of your country, and that's something the founders were terrified of. And at the same time, you have Jefferson saying that the media is essential to a free republic. So we are just clearly violating the origins and the founding of our country.
Now, see, one of the citizens of our country who their rights are being infringed upon is Dinesh D'Souza. If you guys haven't heard, they're actually, the Justice Department is going after him for campaign contributions that he gave. Now, it's been said that the reason why the Justice Department is going after him is because he is a critic of the president and his administration in his movie 2016. And not only that, is that he has another movie coming out that's coming out right before the election, and that's why they're going after him. What's your guys' take on that?
Well, I've actually met Dinesh, and he's an affable gentleman. He made the movie with the sense that he was going to go into it, as he stated, with an open mind and look at the issues and look at the facts. He put it to film, and if we are now going to see him being prosecuted, I think that that's a travesty. They shouldn't be going after the filmmakers. That's another free speech issue.
Absolutely. You know, Nixon was criticized for using the IRS or planning to use the IRS as an attack dog. He never actually did it to the extent that it's happening now. I mean, I almost feel left out. I testified against Eric Holder, and I was in the Hillary movie. I didn't get, well, as far as I know, I didn't get audited. But,
Not yet.
No, not yet. Am I allowed to do this? I don't know. Anyway, yeah, I mean, it's just unbelievable that our own people, you know, IRS agents are Americans.
Yeah.
And look what they do to their own people. It's really
see,
sick.
that's the thing that I think that the left, as you so call it, I don't think that they really understand that when we say that we are being targeted by the IRS, yes, we're being targeted, and yes, there's some on the left, not as many as on our side, but there's many people getting targeted. But it basically boils down to the fact that the administration, no matter if it's Barack Obama, President Bush, whoever's in office, they pick and choose the winners and the losers, and that's the biggest issue.
Well, you know what's very important in the human resource arena? When you have 96% of the people being affected by the investigations by the IRS, we would have called it disparate impact. And if you're going to tell me that 90% of those individuals who were targeted, or groups that were targeted, were conservatives, and you're talking about 96%,
Yeah.
then you're looking at a treatment and an impact that had to be weighted and had to be biased. So no matter what else they say, and they show 8 groups that were liberal, that were scrutinized, I'm sorry, I can't buy it personally.
It's not an anomaly at that point, right? I mean, it's
really
intentional at 90. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you both would agree that at some point, whether you're left or right, your rights are being infringed at some point in time.
Yeah.
Well, I think we see it. I think our rights are infringed, and we don't even know half the time. So you don't know what people are doing.
Okay. Well, I wish we had more time, but we had a very lengthy discussion, and we could go on for hours on this. I just want to thank you guys for watching. You can find us at our website, njtpartycoalition.org, and stay tuned for more news from us. Thank you.